Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the AI in Action. So, what these are going to be, as for each module, we're going to do kind of live demonstrations of things that we're doing with AI. So, the first one that I would like to do is just general introduction. So, at this point, you probably have already set up your account. And my guess is some of you probably already have accounts, but I have to go with the understanding that some of you maybe have never dabbled in this at all. Probably not likely, but we have to go with that. So do set up your accounts. Now, what I would recommend, and you can do this a couple of ways, but just it's easier um, to use your Google credentials. All three of these AIs have the Google credential login. Doesn't mean you're logging into Google. It's just that convenient way to use those Google credentials to log into all kinds of stuff. So that's what I do. Now, you can do, there's other methods to set up these accounts if you like, but that one is probably the lowest path of resistance for you. And also I guess another assumption for this class is nobody has a paid account. So now, if you have a paid account, great. You're just going to see some extra bells and whistles. What are paid accounts? Should I even have a paid account? There are various levels, as you probably saw when you were establishing your accounts. If you haven't done that already, it's going to ask whether you want to have a upgraded premium pro, whatever type of account as you go into it. Again, just default to the free one. That's what we're going to use in this course. I'm not going to have any assignments tied to anything that requires you to have a paid subscription. However, we will probably introduce some of those features. I'll just let you know about them because I do believe that by the end of this course, you will probably pick one and have a subscription. The $20 subscription level is usually good for just about anything, and all of them have that $20 level in there. Another question or another, I call it the big three. That's my own personal perspective, and there's really a big three plus one. But when we look at the consumer grade level, large language models, it's Claude, GPT, Gemini, and sometimes you can say Grok. Now, but for the most part, we're going to go with these three throughout the course. There are other ones you may have heard of, DeepSeek. There's a whole satellite of um, AIs coming out of China that are very good, and they're usually free, but they take a little bit more technical, technical expertise to access some of them, and they're really not mainstream. So there's a little bit about that. We're going with the mainstream ones, and my recommendation is at some point you're going to subscribe to one of them. I know 20 bucks can be a lot, but ask yourself how much you're paying for a Netflix, how much you're paying for a Hulu, subscription. Um, and there's nothing going to be more important than having AI integrated into your life and professional life. So hopefully you'll see that by the end of this course. So if you had to choose 20 bucks to spend, it is well worth it. For me, I subscribe to all three, um, and I subscribe to kind of a higher level within Claude. My own personal preference. Claude is my main driver. Um, but again, you're going to see some things, and even with today's assignment, or the assignments that we're going to have this week in the module, you're going to start to see different flavors. If you've never been exposed to these other large language models, this is a great time to see it because honestly, I I subscribe to all three of them, and all three of them have different um, expertise. So I've, so it's something that I think is very important. Now, all right, so there's that. Let's take a look at these. We're going to kind of do a little walkthrough of each one. Again, some of you may be an AI pro and know all this, but I have to go that you don't know anything. All right, so the first one is GPT. So as you're just kind of walking around the screen, they all have very similar flavors in here. Again, I have made sure, I'm trying to make sure I'm defaulting to the free account. So I haven't been on the free account in years. So to me, it's looking like, okay, we've lost a few features, but there's still a lot of features on the free account that I see with the paid account, and I'm even seeing the voice feature on here, so that's kind of cool. But all of them have this bar area where you're going to enter in a prompt. So again, basic stuff here. Not only are you going to enter a prompt, but you can pretty much enter in anything into here. Images, web links, documents, PDFs. You can drop all kinds of stuff into there. Just literally drag drop, which we will go over in other modules. But it's not just text anymore as it was, in the very beginning. It's so much more. And that's what you can see, with this plus button, add photos, files, and then all this other kind of stuff that you can do. Again, it's just not text anymore, which we will go over some of those features as we go through the class. Some of the features we're not going to hit hard on are the ones um, such as the video, the image, um, music. We probably will dabble in those just a little bit because they're so cool. But when you look at day-to-day workflow, yeah, you really don't use them. I hardly ever use those. But they are pretty neat. So we'll experiment with that a little bit too. All right, so we got the main box here. Some of them have voice integration, which is cool. Let's see here. Yep. And I would say the conversational voice mode for Chat GPT, and I'll just say GPT in this class because I hate saying Chat GPT. It's just way too much of a mouthful. But for GPT, their conversational voice is the best out of all of them. Gemini probably second, and Claude is not usable for me. So again, that's something kind of cool where you can be like if I'm taking a long drive, I will, let's see, let's get out of here, continue. All right, cancel. All right, okay. When I'm taking a long drive, I'll flip on the voice mode and we'll have a conversation, which is really kind of cool. So, all right, it's conversation mode, the box. All right, let's take a look at the side panels. So most of them all have this side panel. So you'll simply just open it up and then you can see extra features in here. Starting new chats, image generation, apps. I hope that we're going to make an app by the time that we're done. That's very cool. And projects. So these are all little bells and whistles that we're going to talk about. Projects is really cool as well. That's another, like I always say, game changers. It seems about every 2 weeks there's a game changer that comes out with these things. But we're gonna play around with these additional features within the big three. But you could do that now. Have some fun with it. Um, all kinds of stuff in there, but definitely projects for sure. We're going to be doing some stuff because that's a great way for you to organize larger projects and kind of customize that. There's other features that we'll talk about, such as custom instructions, but we'll get that's kind of changing the flavor of how these AIs work with you. You can actually kind of tune their personality to something that you like. So that's another kind of thing. Right now, we're just dealing with the default personalities. All right, so let's take a look at how the responses work here. I've got a prompt that we're going to use for all three and just see how it kicks it out. And we'll paste that in there. Okay, so what are the three things as a healthcare administrator you should know about managing staff burnout? Let's see what it says. While I was thinking, occasionally you'll get, it'll glitch or that it'll be super busy. If that happens, just go ahead and wait a moment, come back to it. All right, so it's kicked out pretty nice. I like the format, nice and concise. Not a lot, just straight and to the point. That looks pretty good. I like how it uses bullet points. Again, we could customize that if we wanted to. If we wanted longer narrative, we could even say, please put in citations. And that's something else we'll be discussing as we go through the class. All right, let's move on to Gemini. These next ones will be kind of quicker because they all have kind of the same flavor. Gemini, again, you kind of have this box in here. Gemini, let me go back a little about the history. So with OpenAI, they, or I should say, GPT, is from OpenAI. That's the lab. That's the company that started it. With Gemini, obviously, that's Google. And with Claude, their owning company is called Anthropic. So those are probably names that everybody knows Google, but Anthropic and OpenAI, when you hear that in the media, um, and especially Anthropic, has come up quite a bit in the past week. Um, Again, I like to make these videos somewhat timeless, but the with recent activities in Iran, uh, this is very interesting. Anthropic said, "Do not use our models." So, uh, yeah, it was interesting one to find out that the military was using their models, and were they using for targeting? Were they using what kind of analysis were they using it for? Anthropic was basically, we do not want you to use our models to kill people. Now they can use models for analysis and other things, but were they using it for targeting preferences? I have no idea, but I thought that was interesting. So Anthropic has been in the news a lot because they refused the Department of, now it's called War, the Department of War from using their models or removing the safeguards on there. So then the Department of War said, we're going to cancel the contract. So um, but interesting, AI and war is already right now happening. Okay, so Gemini, there's a little bit of that, the history of the three, and they're kind of their owning parent companies. Again, you have the same chat box, very similar. You got microphone, voice mode in here, tools, and we'll go over all of these. Canvas is great for iteration. Almost all of them have a canvas function, um, which again we will show in another video, but that's a game changer, definitely something to use, especially when you're iterating. One of the things um, that I think is absolutely critical, like how do you use AI? It is one of the key parts is iteration. So the AI and I will make something, but we'll constantly be iterating back and forth. I'll say, hey, let's change that. Let's move that. What do you think about this paragraph? Um, let's add this perspective in here. Okay, let's take this part away. Oh, I don't like that language. Let's make the language more approachable or make it more academic. We're constantly going back and forth and usually changing documents. Um, and when you have Canvas up, you can see that document being changed in real time. So it's like having a live editor. So, but we'll go over that. But again, feel free. You can't hurt anything. So play with it. Sidebars as well with this one. This has a hamburger menu. Open that up, and then you can see some of the things in here. What are gems? Gems are great, and we'll talk about those as well. Those are very specific workflows that you can use again for a kind of a very specific function, and gems are very powerful. But what they don't have are projects. So that's a little bit of a downer, but they have something called Notebook LM, and we'll talk about that in a future video as well. All right, let's go to Claude. Claude is my favorite because it just resonates with me. And that may sound like a little odd that you think that a large language model would resonate with you, but you will find that they all have their own different personalities. And some of them will just kind of, the terms here are kind of like terms that we use in human relationships, but that is the only way to describe it. And when you hear um, the CEOs of all the major companies talking about it, or the scientists involved, they'll use these exact terms, these human relationship terms. But it just gets me. And usually there's not a lot of, we're usually on the same page when we are doing something. Where with GPT, sometimes I'll need to go, no, 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 let's do this. And I might have to say it 2 or 3 times before it kind of gets into the flow. For me, for Claude, that usually the way they've tuned it, and that is the the folks behind the scenes, it just seems to work really well, especially with the type of work that I do. So, but again, you're going to find your own favorite that you like. Let's open up the sidebar with Claude. Again, it has the same kind of chat bar in here. We'll drop that prompt in there real quick and see what that looks like. Um, and we'll go over, some of these features. What's also nice, and we haven't, because we've just started to chat with these, it's going to save your chats. That's why you have an account. You can do these things with even out having an account, but when you have an account, then you'll save the chat, and that's also super valuable because you'll be going back and maybe building upon a chat, or where was that thing when we discussed such and such, and you'll be able to see all of that in there. So the chat records are super helpful, and they'll start showing up down here as you have more and more chats with them. I would recommend across all three of them, try not to convolute topics. If you're going to have a it is pretty good about maintaining what you're talking about, but what I would recommend is if you're going to switch topics, maybe you're working on a project here and you decide to work on a PowerPoint, you know, make them separate chats. That way, it's reference, we call context window. Its context window is going to be focused in primarily on that current chat. Now, what's kind of cool in all of these models now is they can look into the other chats and see. But from my experience, it's not as pure. I'll have to say, hey, we chatted about XYZ. Can you recall that? And it will say, one moment, please. And then it will go and look for it. So it's not present of mind. So that's usually why I recommend new chats for each topic. Just don't have a huge dialogue of multiple things that you're working on, different projects. It will kind of get things muddy, just as a person would. You kind of want to have that compartmentalized. And again, we'll talk about projects, which is a great way to compartmentalize things. We'll talk about gems as well. We'll talk about GPTs. Those are like gems, but in Chat GPT. Again, kind of compartmentalizing that. All right, and so there's that. I won't touch too much on artifacts. Way cool. And coding, super cool. You can code now. Anybody can build an app. I've probably built a dozen apps. I have no idea how to code in Python, no idea how to code in HTML, but the new perspective is you're a builder, you're not a coder. So I'm pretty good at building. So I can see like, what is the user interface going to look like? What is the user experience that I want? What do I want the product to do? Right now, I build apps specifically like for my own use or for the use of my team. But that is definitely that is something that's very, very cool. And I will say a lot of what I'm going to say in this class will be my opinion, but what I believe will happen is that, and you'll see this as we go through the course, the traditional world of apps will be gone. The app store on your phone, all of that, Microsoft Office, going out and buying. Back in the day, if you wanted to do Photoshop, I don't know. I think Photoshop is dead. You'd spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get Photoshop, or you would get a subscription. All of that is going away because the AI will be the app. It'll create the thing that you need as you need it, customized to your own experience. Um, Even the operating system for your computers, I believe that will go away. You will just simply interact with the AI. It will take care of all of that for you. So things are going to be very, very different. And you can see that in the behavior of these companies. Everybody's tossing AI into their products. They know that they have a serious issue when someone someone like me who has no Photoshop skills, very minimal, okay, Photoshop skills. And Photoshop was a thing that you had to spend hundreds of hours on to learn to do well. When I can do it now in 10 seconds, when I can create video special effects that would have cost thousands, and I can do it in a couple of minutes, that's why you see a lot of I don't want to say running scared, but there's definitely a lot of attention happening with AI when you hear about actors, voice actors, worrying about these things. Yeah, because yeah, you could be replaced. Um, and you'll see the technology is pretty much there now at this point. But yes, a lot of interesting things. Again, my opinion on how these changes are going to happen. The one thing I can guarantee is there will be change, and that's the focus of this class: is having you prepared for that change. What is the kind of the meme now? AI is not going to take your job if you're the person that's using AI. So that's what we want to prepare you for. All right, let's do before we wind this up, and I like to keep these at about 20 minutes. Let's take a look at the response in Claude for our prompt question. Oh, sorry, I'm in project. Sorry about that. There we go. Boom. And now Claude is giving me an issue. Hold on one second. All right, there we go. I was still kind of it was in that project mode. Okay, so notice the flavor here. More text-based, less, and again, I haven't done any, I guess customization. I'm just taking exactly the raw personality of it and what's coming out of here, but also concise, interesting. All right, the one thing we didn't do, let's in a couple seconds here, let's do Gemini and let's see what that one looks like. Kind of, oh, look at this. Hmm, I like that. Interesting. I like how I put a little chart in there. I could even export that. The financial cost of quiet quitting. Let's see. Did quiet quitting show up in all of them? Yeah, this is quiet quitting. Decreased absenteeism, withdrawal. That's similar, but it doesn't carry that specific. Yeah, we got some of that in there, but that is that quiet quitting concept. But it's interesting how it broke it out differently. So as you can see, each one of them have three different responses, different flavors, and how they make the responses. Um, and their approach to layout. Again, we can customize that, we can tease it out, we can change it as we iterate with the AI. Okay, that covers our little walkthrough, our AI in action for this week. Um, I hope you enjoy kind of the assignment that you have. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks.